Sometimes when you're building websites for yourself or for clients, you just want to kind of create some cool effects. Two very popular ones right now are Glassmorphism and Gradient Meshes. Today I'm going to show you how you can create those and use those inside Bricks Builder. However, you can do this with any builder that allows you to put in custom CSS, so don't think you're limited to only doing this with Bricks Builder. So here's a good example. You can see we've got our navigation at the top that's using Glassmorphism, and you can see as we scroll over, we've got a nice blur effect and we've got this sort of semi-opaque effect on it. Pretty cool. You'll also notice in the background that we've got this gradient mesh that kind of gives a little bit of color to your hero section. Now, if you want to find out how to create these mockups, I've already got a video on doing that for an absolutely free tool. Check out this video here. Okay, so now we've seen what we're going to create. Let's take a look at how easy it is to create it all. Let's start off by taking a look at how to create the gradient mesh and apply that in this example to the hero section that I've created in Bricks Builder. So first of all, we need to make sure we've got the right element or section selected. I want to apply this to the whole background of our hero. So to do that, I'm going to make sure I've got the hero section selected. Now in this example, I'm using templates and I've already got some global classes applied. So you can see I've got hero 4. I'm going to make sure that's selected. I'm going to come down to the CSS section. Scroll down and I'm going to add in the root element so we can make sure we're targeting the root element, in example, the hero section here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is create the actual mesh effect. Now we could do this by hand if we want to, but why make our lives more difficult when we can have a simple visual way of doing just that? For this, we're going to be using the free Mesher website by CSS Hero. Totally free website, don't need an account or anything else. Link will be in the description down below. So this allows you to visually edit and create your own gradient meshes. You can simply drag these points around, choosing which one you want, and you see these relate to the colors over in the right-hand side for the little color chips, which we can easily click to change. So if you want to change this from green to something else, you can see we can easily tweak that. You set your background color. In this example, I may want to set this to be something like white, and you can see that now has the effect that we want, and you can easily come in and remove any color or colors you don't want included. So let's say we don't want these greens and so on, and all these blues. We're quite happy with something like this. We'll tweak this a little bit. You kind of get the idea. You can randomize it if you want to, and you can adjust various different parameters. Once you're happy with it, all we need to do is click on export, and this will now give you the CSS code to be able to use inside the class in Bricks Builder. You see everything is there. All we're going to do is copy this to our clipboard. Job done. Now head back into Bricks Builder. We've got our CSS panel open inside the root element. We're simply going to paste that inside there, and you can see that immediately picks up the effect that we just applied. It is that simple. Nothing more to it than that. So now if we take a look at this on the front end, let's save this, take a quick look. You can see there's our gradient mesh, all looking pretty cool. Really easy to do. Now, if you want to take this one step further, let's just say, for example, you like that effect, but you want it to kind of fade as it goes down over the image that you're going to place here. It's very simple to do. All we need to do, again, is make sure we've got our hero section selected. We're going to come over to our gradient and overlays. Let's scroll this up a little bit. And what we can do now is we can apply this. So we'll say we're going to apply this to an overlay. We'll leave everything else as it is on there. We're going to come in and choose our color. So it doesn't really matter. We're going to choose white as one of our colors. You can see that applies that at the top. We're going to do the same thing again. We're just going to simply duplicate this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to choose our top color, and we're going to adjust the opacity on that, or the transparency on that. That allows the top color to actually show through, and it allows us to fade things out so it's not quite so prevalent. And you can see as it goes down, we now transition into that white color, which merges into what we have as the background color. Obviously, if you're using a dark background color or anything else, adjust accordingly. But this to me is a nice way of combining the two different ways in which we can create gradient meshes and then apply a gradient over the top as an overlay to give it a much nicer effect. Again, let's save this and take a quick look. And you can see now that fades as it goes down the page, making it a little bit more subtle. Now, if you're enjoying this video and getting value from it, why not hit that subscribe button to be notified when new content is added? I release content on WordPress, web design, Bricks Builder, and so much more every single week. So to be notified, hit that subscribe button. Okay, so now that we've seen how to create the gradient effect and the mesh effect in the background, the next thing to tackle is the navigation bar. So first of all, we need to start editing that template. So we're going to click Edit Header. And once we're inside here, we need to do a couple of things. This is using a standard header section, and I want to give this a slightly floating effect. So the first thing we're going to do is expand all of these out from the right-hand side. You see there's a lot going on there, but don't worry about it. With the header section, we're going to simply come over, choose our class that we've got applied, hop into style, and we're going to remove the background. So we're having a transparent background. And while we're at it, we're going to get rid of any border or box shadow. Now we've got a plain old vanilla header section. Next, we're going to select the container, and this is the section that actually contains our navigation header section. So once we've got that selected, you can see this gives us a blue outline showing any spacing and so on. We need to add a little bit of padding to that, so we're going to make sure, again, we've got the right class selected, and we're going to come down to our layout, link these together, and add a little bit of padding. Now, I'm using Core Framework here, but you can just put in arbitrary values if you want to, or if you're using a different framework, whatever values you want to use. Okay, so this is the first part. Next thing, I want to round those corners, so we're going to simply come into the border box shadow, open up the border options, link these radiuses together, and simply set a medium radius to give us a nice rounded corners. Pretty cool. Okay, so this is the first part done. The next thing now is to apply the actual effect itself. The key thing here is making sure that we have the container selected and not the header parent section, because that will do the entire section at the top. We only want the actual navigation area with the logo and so on. Hope that makes sense. With that selected, we're going to again use a free tool to be able to visually create the Glassmorphism effect that we want. So we're going to use CSS.glass. Again, this will be linked in the description. And this is a lovely visual way of being able to customize the effect. You can see it shows us at the top exactly what this is going to look like. So you can adjust the transparency on here. You can change the background color. If you want darker, lighter, a specific color, all will be changed here. You can see we can select anything we want and give it that kind of tinge effect. For this though, I want to keep this really simple and keep this to be white. We can adjust the blur effect on there. You can see this will give us more or less of a blur effect and an outline. So if you want to apply a heavier stroke outline around, you can do that. Or if you want something more subtle or nothing at all, adjust accordingly. Once you've finished, you can see there's the CSS. All we need to do is copy this to our clipboard, head back into Bricks Builder, making sure, like I say, we still have the container selected. Like we've done before, making sure, again, we've got the class selected. We're going to come into our CSS tab. We're going to come down. We're going to pop in the root element just to make sure we're targeting the actual container. And then we're going to paste in that CSS code. Now, you probably can't see much here except for maybe a little bit of a faint drop shadow. But let's save this. And heading back into our page that we're working on with the hero section, you can see that has now been applied. And if we scroll up, you can see there's our blur effect. We've got a slight drop shadow to it. We've got the background color we want and so on. All pretty cool. Let's save and let's preview this fully. So there is our new floating navigation section at the top with our Glassmorphism effect applied to it. And there's our hero section with our mesh gradient and an overlay gradient to make that a more subtle effect. And that's basically how you do it. It's pretty simple and pretty easy. Now, if you want to find out more about working with Bricks Builder, check out this link here to a playlist with a ton of videos. All applicable links in the description. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.